nice to see you. I have got the amazing, wonderful, talented, brilliant, fabulous, one of my favorite all-time returning guests on the Cup of Joe, Jo Anna Perrin. And I have so many questions to ask Joanna. And rather than bug her with 800 million messages on Messenger at 3 in the morning, I figured, why not have a Joe call and share all the Joanna-ness with all of you guys? And so I'm going to jump in. I'm not going to do, you guys know the, hold on, are we recording? We're recording. You know the rules. We've got regulars here so far, but if you have any questions, please make them interesting questions. If it's something like normal and grown up, we could find on Google. Let's search Google. Let's ask the good stuff. Put them in the chat and I will forward them. I'll ask Joanna during the call, and let's jump in. I'm not going to start with who were you at 10 years old. We've already done that. We've already had a call, and
I was a small person.
Yeah. Well, that's a very, don't say that because now everyone's going to use that one. But you know that we had started a conversation. Joanna was on the Don Barnes podcast, and I saw a snippet of it, and something she said was really, really struck me. I've lately been fascinated by the energy that goes behind what we're doing when we're in the booth. And can I preface with, and I'm sorry for the long spiels before the guest even gets to talk, but I just think this will tie it all together. Tanya Eby recently did a post, 2 posts that really struck me. She's like on fire with her blog now. One was about auditions and how make the first second count, like own that bit and be that confident, strong narrator that grabs their attention in the first second of the audition. Don't warm into it for an audition. And then the second thing she said was, who knows why some people get hired and some people don't get hired, and what is that je ne sais quoi? And she said it's usually the narrators that own their performance, and you're a queen of that. I'm sorry, you're Jackie Kennedy. And I have to say, my husband's never listened to an audiobook in his entire life. And he came running in the room. Oh, I've got this book because he loves history. It's Jackie Kennedy. I'm like, that's Joanna. I know her.
Oh my God.
So
I never go check, so I never know if anybody's listening to any of my books because
you're a celebrity in our household. I'm
Oh, wow.
the worst person on earth for reviews, so I will just shut up right there. But you are a celebrity in our house, but you're also the queen of owning your performance. And on the Don Barnes call, you brought something up about they expect women's voices to have some warmth in them.
Yes.
Can we talk about this?
Sure. I mean, the first time I brought this up was one of our retreats that we do every October. And I was with Paul Rubin, and he leaned over, put his hand on my arm and said, I'm glad you're saying this because if I did, I'd be destroyed. And I said, well, that's why I can say it, because I'm a woman. Yeah, the thing is, both men and women are prejudiced against women's voices. Look at what happened to poor Hillary Clinton. I mean, either our voices are too high, they're too low, they sound too dumb, they sound too intelligent. It's always, there's a problem with someone listening to a woman's voice. And one of the problems with nonfiction, which I do a lot, is people tend to get robotic, for one thing. And a lot of it's written in a very robotic way, so you have to find a way to own it and make it warmer.
Right.
But also as a woman, you have to put more warmth in your voice, because if I were to read a book like A Clinical Professor, I'll get slammed. If a man were to read it like A Clinical Professor, no one will mention his voice. They'll either like the book or they won't like the book. But people are still prejudiced towards women's voices. And in fact, some of the worst are the women. Women will, I don't like her this, I don't like her that, whatever. Like, look at romances even. I had to do a romance, which I'd never done before. So I did some research and I listened to a bunch of romances. And then I went back and looked at what people said about these people on Audible. Some of the men, because it's really hard for men to do a woman's voice that doesn't sound falsetto or a little too high pitched. But some of the men will find one woman's voice that works for them. And in the romance, that woman is every woman in the book. It's the 80-year-old woman, the 20-year-old woman, the daughter, the mother, everybody.
And have you
Whereas
noticed that they're in their attempt to soften that voice, they sometimes make her sound not very intelligent? And
yes, they dumb it
subconsciously, it makes
down.
me feel like, do they think women are stupid? Or is it just a technical thing? But it subconsciously makes me think, is that what they hear when they hear women talk?
I don't know. I understand. It's like spacing. Like I hear men doing women's voices, and they'll leave big space, like spaces, and they'll slow the speech, like it's speech for dummies or something. And
Yeah.
yeah, which they don't do with male voices. But I noticed in the reviews for these romance books, and some of these are women who do tons of romances. They'll say, "Oh, I love these people. They work together really well. He's great. She's a great actress." Blah blah. But I don't like her male voices. And it was one particular book where I thought this guy did, and he was a well-known romance narrator. I don't know who he really is, as I knew his pseudonym. But all his female voices were identical. And I thought, this woman's male voices bothered you, but the fact that he uses one voice for all the women was okay. So I started looking, and it was a trend. If they didn't like a voice, they'd say, I don't like the woman's male lead voice. I don't like her male voices. There wasn't one complaint against any men's voices, even when they use the same voice, which is one voice for every role.
So
And
I have a
so,
question. Do you think maybe when women are listening to romance, they're imagining themselves being with that guy? And so
yes,
they want it to be a real, quote unquote, real man so that they can
yes,
have the fantasy.
exactly. They could be great actors, these men.
Yeah.
I mean, they do romance, they do everything. They could be stage actors, whatever they do, but they cannot sound like a woman, mainly because they do have these very manly voices, and that's what women are listening to. They're listening to this hunk they've envisioned in their head because he's got that really, how you doing, babe, kind of voice. So that's what they're buying into. That's why they bought the book, for him. But they will pan the woman if her voices don't sound to them like good male voices. They never pan the guy. Well, in nonfiction, it's the same thing. They'll often say about a woman narrator, she sounds like a robot. But if you listen to the same style done by a man, they either like the book or they don't like the book, but they say nothing about the fact that it's robotic. So women do get judged. So when I coach, I always tell women to try to put warmth. Think fuzzy thoughts, even if it's a horrible passage. Smile when you narrate. Smile through a passage, because when you smile, there is a lilt that will come out in the wording. You have to try to stay warm, because for whatever reason, especially with nonfiction, women seem to be cold if they sound intelligent to a lot of people. So yeah, there's a definite slant towards women's voices, and I don't think it can be ignored. And I do check reviews, and I do notice that women do get slammed for, she's too high pitched. I was listening to somebody who I liked, and I looked at the reviews, and one of them was, this woman's so high pitched I couldn't listen to her for a second more. She wasn't high pitched at all to me. So I was like, okay. And she's a woman who does a lot of books of all kinds. So it's stuff like that. And you don't usually see it aimed towards men. You see it aimed towards women. So I always tell women, remember warmth. You've got to smile through passages. You've got to keep fuzzy thoughts in your head. You've got to try to maintain a warmth, no matter what the topic is, especially in nonfiction.
So I wonder about, because I've really, really been thinking about, and it goes back, that's why I think Tanya's post about a narrator, who knows why one narrator is really, really successful and another equally good, equally talented narrator won't be. But it's the je ne sais quoi, the owning the performance, the feeling like that. And to me, that says they deep down feel confident in a way where they own it. It's like what Julia Whalen said, I don't care what people think. And she said it straight out, and not in an arrogant way, just in a factual way.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering if that kind of confidence is subconsciously relayed. We're all animals, and we all, here, and then as well as happiness, because I just feel that there's no technique in the world that can make up for if you're a really unhappy person and you present yourself. I'm fine. I'm struggling with that myself. I'm not struggling with it,
Well,
but I'm checking my mood.
I think that you know, there's a lot of the catchphrase, imposter syndrome these
Yeah.
days, that everybody has, but everybody's had that forever. There's
Yeah.
nobody who's so confident they go out there, I go, hey, I've got the world on a string, you know, and start singing a song. So that's been there for a long time. But if you bring that into the booth,
Yeah.
it's definitely going to affect your narration because it's always going to be here. Instead of working on what you're working on, it's going to be, you know, I'm not good enough. Why am I doing? Why are they hiring me? They could have hired somebody else. Oh my God, my voice is awful. We all have those. That my dog now wants to get out. We all have those thoughts. Goodbye. See you later.
But if we approach the job with
Sorry.
joy
And
and
interlope
focus
with it.
on that, then we bypass the need for confidence, don't we? Because we're
I
not
think so.
thinking about what other people
If
think.
if you have a technique, the same thing if you do stage work or whatever work, it's if you have a technique to fall back on, then all that other stuff kind of goes, you know, that's for when you're not on stage. That's for when you're not in front of the mic, because you
Yeah.
have a technique you can rely on and you know you can get through it. But if you let all the other stuff, your mood, I didn't have lunch. I hate my boyfriend today. You know, I hate my girlfriend, whatever. All that stuff will interfere. It has to. We're human. So you have to kind of go, this is the booth. Everything else, I leave it in
Yeah.
front of that door and shut the door. And for an hour or 2 hours or however long you're in the booth, your life's perfect. Everything's this book. You can't bring it with you. You can't run away from it, but you can't let it come in because then it'll affect your narration.
You made
Um,
me realize something though, because when I was in theater, I had a ritual. And before every performance, even though everyone laughed at me, I went behind the curtains and I peeked out at the people. It was my favorite moment, two favorite moments in the world were putting the makeup on with the lights around, oh, the dressing rooms, and then sitting behind the curtain and looking at the people and it's silent. And I was so just buzzing every time it started. And I never had anything like that for narrating. I just had worry and try hard when I went
uh,
into the booth. I've never had a buzzing excitement.
well, first of all, you think I'm so confident. I was going to say your thing before you went on is a lot better than mine. Mine would be to run to the bathroom because my stomach would be upset and I tried not to throw up before every time I had to go on stage. That's how
Did you
confident
get
I was.
stage fright before you went on
Oh
stage?
yeah, that's why I would run to the bathroom and
Wow.
sometimes throw up, actually throw up. And I'd get it literally got out of my system. And then I'd go on stage and everything was fine. That was how I and then count to 10 and go on. So yeah, that was a method. I don't do that for audiobooks.
Maybe I need to do that for audiobooks.
I think you need it. Some people need a ritual.
Yeah.
I had a student once that was, she would get in and she'd have all these, this and that and that and that. And I said, why don't you do this? 10 minutes before you go in, take a 10-minute meditation and meditate. And turn off the meditation and come into the booth and see how that works. And it worked for her because the thing was, she was too, you know, there were too many things, too many variables that she was worried about. All of a sudden she was, you know, the alpha was flowing and she just would walk in and it was so much better for her. So that was her ritual. My ritual really is to just literally do nothing before I go into the booth, except possibly read my first page that I'm going to start with. And then I just try to relax for 10 minutes and go in and take everything that's bothering me or that I forgot to do and leave it behind the door because otherwise it's going to affect my narration. So
I used
ritual.
to do a Buddhist chant. You know, the Nam-myoho Renge Kyo, there was a 15-minute
Yeah,
one
yeah,
on
yeah.
YouTube. So I would do it while I was searching Pinterest. And that made me happy because
Yeah.
visually pretty things I loved, fall coats, sweaters. And then the chant would like kind of reminded me of being young and
Well,
thin
because
and
it's, you know, we have what they call monkey mind, which is why many people have trouble sleeping because you put your head down and you're thinking, oh,
yeah.
I forgot to pay my taxes. Oh, I have to do this. So it gets rid of it when you meditate. So even if you're not a person who meditates, if you just listen to something for 5 minutes or 10 minutes and then go into your booth, your mind has been cleared of a lot of cobwebs. And
I'm
now
going to
that
do that from now on.
you're focused on whatever your script in front of you, then you're already in a better place.
And because you're scattered, I spilled my coffee on my Audient on yesterday or 2 days ago, had to buy a new one, that kind of thing. I found a guy though, I don't know his name, I have to look for it. I might have sent him a cringy email going, oh my God, you're the best thing in the whole world, will you please come on Cup of Joe? He's like an Irish voice artist, and I was last night wide awake with a monkey mind, and I'm searching YouTube for meditations, and he does these things called adult stories. And they're not like the meditations you find. He literally tells you stories, and he's got one of like 4
Oh,
cabin stories.
yeah. I've heard of that.
Have you
There's
heard of
actually,
him?
maybe it's Calm. There's one of those apps that has bedtime stories, and all they are is somebody telling an adult a bedtime story like you might tell your children, or you were told
Yeah.
as a child,
And there's
kind of
sound
thing.
effects. Like I could
Yeah,
hear the rain. It was 4 cabins, one in the winter in the Alpines, one in the, Hawaii, or I mean, it was just, I was asleep halfway through the first one, so I don't
yeah.
remember the others, but
They're very relaxing. It's like being
unbelievable.
read to by your parents. It's just kind of, you just kind of mellow out and chill. But
Do
I
you
wouldn't,
have a memory
those
of
make me
that?
sleepy.
Do you have a
Being read
memory of
to?
that safety memory? I remember mine was being 10 years old, my father's TV down the hall and the light from the crack in the door. What's your safest memory from being a kid going to sleep?
I think, well, this is like a really long, when I was very little, and if it hadn't been that my dad corroborated it, I would have thought I imagined it. But when I was very little, in the crib little, I've always had trouble sleeping. And so apparently my father, later on, he was somewhere else, but he was working his night shift for a while. He was on night shift at this job. And so he would get home at 11 or 12 o'clock. And my mother apparently would go, she's still awake. And he'd go inside to my room, and apparently, and I had this memory, he would pick me up because I'd be wide awake, and he'd fly me around, and then he'd put me back in
Oh,
and say, and the trip is long and you're getting tired, now you're going to go to sleep, all with an Italian accent because he was from Italy. And he said, oh, and I would fall asleep. And so when I was a teenager, I said, I have this memory, Dad. And he said, yeah, I used to do that every night until you were about 3 years old and you finally would go to sleep. So that was always a comforting thing for me, this being picked up and flown through the air. And I had stars on the ceiling,
I
like a
did
lot of
too. That
kids
must
do.
be an
Yeah,
Italian father thing.
probably.
And
So,
he was so
doing
proud of
this,
us.
you felt like you were, when you're 1, 2, or 3, you really felt like you were flying, and that, for some reason, I found it really comforting and I'd fall asleep. But the flip side was, I now realize I apparently was waiting for that, which is why I wasn't falling asleep. I was thinking, soon he'll be here to fly me around and then I'll
And it
fall
gets
asleep.
more difficult unless you want to have Johnny pick you.
After a while, it's like, this kid's getting heavy. No more pasta for you.
But accessing those places of, don't you think that those like visceral feelings from when we were little are in our bones,
Oh
right?
yeah, there's definitely everything that's ever happened to us is in our muscle memory, and
Yeah.
yeah, I think so. It can be recalled. It's like when people go to the gym. That's physical muscle memory. If you go to the gym a lot and you start to get muscles, okay, and then you suddenly don't go for 6 months, you think, oh my God, I'm a mess. I'll never get those muscles back. Once you start going, the muscles come back pretty quickly because your body remembers you had those muscles and they come back. Well,
I
it's the same
really
thing with
hope you're right.
Oh no, it's true. It is true. Um, and it's like that with anything you've been through, any emotional thing. I mean, yeah, that's why things are triggers for people. The bad things, and sometimes the good things are triggers. You smell the Madeline, and you go, oh, you're back. It's a memory that comes back. Everything that's happened is locked in here, and it
Yeah.
eventually can come back out physically. So yeah, you remember everything,
Okay, so I'm
even
going
if
to
you
take
don't
this in a
recall it
different
now.
direction. And
Okay.
I
Uh-oh.
hope it's not an uncomfortable direction, because I'm now loud and proud about this, but other people maybe not so much. But I've noticed that people are now hyper vigilant about you don't want to appear old, you don't want to appear this, you don't want to. But the thing is, we all know TikTok, just like Facebook, the minute the older people go on it, it's no
Younger
longer the
people leave.
cool thing, guys. Sorry,
No,
there's no
yeah,
winning that game. So, but a
they
friend of
leave. The
mine,
teenagers leave.
yeah, they do. They do. And so you're not going to be, I'm not going to be 17. I wasn't even 17. I was with the punk rockers with the Mohawks, telling them with a watch, we're going to get caught. You better clean that off the walls. You're embarrassing yourselves. It's, you know, it's Kim says my 21-year-old daughter and 18-year-old son don't like TikTok. Neither are on it. Yep, that's it. But
But when it started in China, that was its market. That
yeah,
was its market. And
yeah.
I actually narrated a book on TikTok and China. And
And you're the reason I took it off my phone telling me about that book.
yeah. And they said it was having trouble ever coming to the United States, which is why I was surprised it got here, because it was used as a spy medium to spy on younger people to find out where they were politically. And if they didn't appear to be on board with what was politically correct, they were visited. They weren't taken away, but they were visited and warned that they had to tone down what they were doing and saying. And so knowing that, I thought, well, thank God it's not here. So when it suddenly showed up here, in my head, I still know that there was a back door into it by China. So I'm like,
Yeah,
well, why would we allow it? It's still a Chinese app, isn't it? Or, whatever. I don't know.
yeah.
But because of that, I had no interest in it. But I also know it was geared towards young people, not even people that are really in their 20s.
Now
And
it's like
so
older
anyone
people trying to
saying that,
act like they're young.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Most of the people I see on it look like they're definitely middle-aged or older. I don't
Yeah.
see a lot of very young people. Um, so I don't know that whoever was complaining sounds to me like what is it? The pot calling the kettle black. It's
But
like,
it makes me think of the new, because you know how they're trends on online, they're trends, right? So I liken it to the curvy trend. Not fat. Nobody was happy with fat, but if you were curvy in all the right places, which with the models meant padded, skinny girls, so that they looked like they had weight in an equally unattainable way, then curvy was the new societies. Let's all be diverse, i.e., curvy. But curvy was marketed by the companies and taken over just as much as
right.
skinny was before. And then now the big trend is the women over 40. We can do it too. And they all call each other ladies, which I can't stand. Ladies. And we can do it. Be proud. You don't have to give up. And then the meme that goes around about like Einstein wrote his first book when he was 120. You know that meme. I might have the details now.
So there's still time.
So there's still
time to
but
succeed.
it
Yes, there's
feels
still
a
time.
little bit patronizing. And a friend of mine was saying that they were 40 and they were freaking out because they didn't have everything they thought they would have. They didn't have the things and I just, that feeling when you see people that you went to school with and they were like, they're so young. And you look back at like a 15-year-old and you're like in college and you're just like, that's what to me over 40 was like, I just can't with that. Like, I just don't care.
The thing is, if you're seeing all this on things like Facebook or whatever,
Yeah.
social media, it's all marketing. And they
Yeah.
have to come up with a new marketing thing. Like, for instance, jeans. Okay, everybody had to have skinny jeans. Last year, nobody was buying jeans because how many pairs of skinny jeans can you have? If you've got 2 pair of
And
black and
also
2 pair
after
of blue,
COVID, who can fit into them?
exactly. So they had to come up with something to get people to buy jeans again. So they started going back to the 70s with bell bottoms.
Yeah.
So they brought out elephant bell bottoms, boot bell bottoms.
I look so good in boot cut, by the way.
Boyfriend. I even bought a pair of boyfriend jeans. Boyfriend jeans are just semi-fitted, and they're a little shorter. You can roll them up, and you kind of look like you might have a rope belt if you wanted. You know what I mean? And it was because they had to sell jeans. So now, I read on somewhere on social media, I saw a thing go by that said, millennials have declared that skinny jeans are out and anybody who wears skinny jeans are passe. And I thought, well, that's nice in the millennials, but if I want to wear skinny jeans, I can wear wear skinny jeans. And if I don't want to wear skinny, the ironic part is I have millennial cousins who wear skinny jeans. So I don't know who wrote this article, but it's just all, it's media hype. So I don't let it,
Yeah.
I don't have to be told that after 40, if I feel like wearing white after September, it's okay. If I feel like wearing white in November, that's my business.
And
I
you're
don't really.
and you're in New York, so and there are a lot of like fashionistas in New York. Not that I'm
There's a lot of
obsessed with a
fashionistas,
sartorialist.
but what you don't see, really, what you don't see in all those, the fashions for fall and yada yada yada, is they break rules all the time. So,
Yeah.
for instance, yes, it was always the rule you don't wear white after Labor Day, and I've seen a lot of fashionistas wearing white suits and white dresses, November, December, whenever they feel like it.
Why
And
was
they're the
that the
people
rule?
saying you don't wear white after
Why was
September.
that the rule? Do you know?
I have no idea. Just ever since I was a kid, that was the rule. You don't wear white because summer's over and it's a summer color. I don't know.
Well,
Black is the color in New York all the time. So
but
who
it's
cares?
insidious because I don't think we realize. I was talking to like a financial guy, and that he said, well, you never know. Nobody knows. I go, I know my entire life. It's never been good news. I've never ever my entire life had them go on the news and say, everything's so much better than it was last year and rates are going
No,
down.
it's always
Never.
worse.
Well,
It's always
he
worse.
said that the banks need they need to control spending. So
Yeah.
they have to give people the message all the time that you're about to lose food, that you're going to starve and live under a bridge. So literally, no matter what happens, you will always be told that and I stopped and thought, what the hell is true?
Yeah.
Like there's nothing true, is there?
Yeah, I don't know anymore. Johnny's dad was almost 96, but he passed away about 6 months ago. But his thing was he was sharp as a tack, and that's wonderful. Totally fine, totally healthy. And he would look at the news, and his conversation always was, "I've lived this long, and I don't know what to believe." He said, "I watch this channel, and they tell me that. I watch that channel, and they tell me that. I read this here and that here. I don't know what's real." And I was thinking, he's right. I don't know what's real. You've got to open your eyes to many different sources and just form your own opinions. But a
Yeah,
lot of the stuff is all hype for, yeah, the market has to be controlled. They want you to buy stocks. Now they don't want you to buy stocks. They want you to spend money now. Oh, inflation. We don't want you to spend money. We want you to look for work. No, we want you to stay where you are. We want you to stay home. No, we want you to go back to the office. It's every day it changes. I think you can only read, keep your mind open, don't be black and white about anything, and make your own opinions.
and we have an advantage in our job because we're exposed to things that we wouldn't necessarily choose to read.
That's true. That's true, especially if you do a lot of nonfiction, because there are so many books that I narrate that I would never pick up to read.
Yeah, same
But I'm
here.
going, wow, this is really interesting. And I learned this and I didn't know that. Like the book on TikTok. I didn't know TikTok from anything. I didn't know what it was. And this was way back. This is like 2016, 2017.
Yeah.
So yeah. So going back to that topic, I don't if people want to go on TikTok, it's fine. It's just not I can't even keep my website updated.
But we did,
Um
but the thing is, we didn't in that call say anything. We didn't even say as much as we said just here about
no,
TikTok.
I
We
don't think we
literally
did,
didn't
but
say anything. But that's what's interesting to me is what you say. It's beyond what you say anymore. What you say and how it's taken are like a million miles apart now, more so than they used to be,
yeah,
because everyone leads with their assumptions.
I'm gonna see if I can find this. So pardon me. Somebody had a meme a couple days ago. And this is it. It says how social media works. You probably all have seen it. Me, I prefer mangoes to oranges. Random person. So basically, what you're saying is you hate oranges. You also failed to mention pineapples, bananas, and grapefruits. Educate yourself. I'm literally shaking. That's social media. That is social media. I laughed so hard I sent it to 10 people.
It is.
Somebody tell me I just did a spit take. Um, that's social media. It's like everybody has an opinion because it's free and it's social media, and everyone has a complaint about everything everybody does. You can either listen to it or go me and move on. I tend to go meh and move on because
Yeah.
it's time consuming, and everybody has an opinion. And I've never been a sheeple or a lemming. I'm not necessarily a leader. It's not like I start, things, but I've always been opinionated, and I just follow my own opinion. And I feel like you said with Julia Whalen, you like me, fine. You don't like me. I know
Yeah.
Lucille Ball's daughter once, I saw her in an interview, and she said her mother said, if you go through life and someone doesn't call you a bitch, you haven't lived at all. And I'm like,
I
yeah,
love that. I love it. I
it's
grew up
true.
with Italians. Every Italian has an opinion, and they loudly proclaim their opinion, and then they eat the rest of their meal. Like,
And
it's,
they hug and kiss you.
yes, they don't, and they say some really, I mean, I've got vivid memories of cousins, not even like long memories, like 3 years ago, of cousins being annoyed with their mother and throwing something off the balcony onto their mother's head, screaming and yelling. And then lunch tomorrow? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, see you at lunchtime. Okay. Bring the wine. Okay. I think the thing is that you do need social media to some point now in narration because it's become the norm. But I
Mm,
don't know if you necessarily have to join every social thing that shows its face. You know, do you have to
yeah.
be on Twitter and LinkedIn and this and that? And maybe. I'm not on LinkedIn. Everybody's telling me I should be on LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter still, hanging on.
It's not
Instagram.
Twitter anymore, isn't it? Like W or Y or
No,
X or
it was X, but then the next day he took the X away and the bird's back. So I don't know. What it is. I don't know. My idea of entertainment is I go in and I look at politics and everybody says something stupid. I go blocked, blocked, blocked.
there are a
I
lot of
blocked 20
writers
people.
on there. I've been looking at it because I wanted to see what writers were thinking and doing. And also I post the Joe calls. There are a lot of
Yeah.
writers on there, but it just made me realize that writers have the exact same like careers that we do.
They do. They have to. Yeah, they have to. You're only as good. I do writing. You are only as good as your last job.
Yeah.
You know, what was the last thing I'd published? Oh, okay. Well, I
Well,
had an
so
article in the Times. Well, that was 6 months ago. Who cares?
how do you do that though? Do you put focus on looking for work as a writer as much as you do looking for work as a narrator? How do you balance that out in your life?
I'll be honest, I'm really awful. If I were good at promotion, I'd be when I was doing film work, I'd be a movie star, or it would have been back when I did it. Um, I'm really bad at everything. So I go through spurts where I half-heartedly say to publishers, I have an open spot if you need me. And same with writing, you know, you need any ghostwriting, any scripts need to be analyzed, you know. So I poke around, and when I get bored with one, I go to the other. Um, because I can't live 24/7 in a booth. It makes me crazy. So when I get to the point where I'm crazy, then I start looking for other outlets. So I'll look for more, what can I do with my writing? Or maybe there's a story I'm working on, let me finish it and finally send it in, submit it, that kind of thing. So I don't know I don't think I do one more than the other. I think it really goes in spurts. Last summer I did a lot of looking for writing, and I worked on a book for kids that I still have about 100 pages to finish before it's
Oh,
done.
that's wonderful. How
Yeah,
exciting.
yeah, it's kind of a steampunk fantasy for kids. So I don't know how that's going to play. But
For
when I
young
started,
adults or a little kid?
it's for little kids, but I could see where some of the humor is more adult oriented. So I could see maybe it'll cross barriers if anybody bothers to read it. I don't know. Maybe older people will read it too. But yeah, I kind of try to portion everything out. In fact, recently I've thought I should really start looking again for commercial or maybe some on camera. And then, of course, writer's strike and SAG strike.
Yeah.
Only because when I started getting to audiobooks, I really put all that to the back. I stopped talking to agents or anything else because I really focused on audiobooks. Even the writing, I stopped focusing on trying to do, any kind of episodic writing because I was thinking, oh, I have to focus on audiobooks. But what it's taught me, and I've been doing it 10, 12, 14 years, is that I really no longer can stay in the booth 24/7. And in order to make a living, you really have to, if you really want to make a living just as an audiobook narrator, you have to stay in the booth all the time. Give up your weekends, give up your evenings, give up everything, because the only way to do it is volume. There's no
I
residuals
love you
unless you're
for
doing.
saying that because I tried to take a walk the other day. I did all the things you're supposed to do like a normal person. And I
Mhm.
emailed my friend. I was like, what? I woke up at 8 in the morning. I did the things. I took the shower. I vacuumed the floor. I narrated. And then I took a stupid walk for 1 hour and cooked the dinner. How do people do this?
Well, you'll
How do
see
you narrate and have an actual life?
you'll see people who will say, oh, I did 50 books this year. If I did 50 books in a year, especially because nonfiction and they're long and they have a lot of research, so it's impossible. But if
Yeah.
I did 50 books, I'd be somewhere, somewhere under a doctor's care. It's just, you'd have no life. And even, I think the most I did in 1 year between my name and pseudonyms was about 25 books. And by December, I was in the booth with my head on the desk weeping because I thought I can't utter another word. Um, I just don't think it's possible. You have to be in the booth constantly to do that many books, unless, and this is the caveat, you do a lot of multicasts or 3 and 4 narrators. Because if you only have to do an hour short story,
Yeah.
2 hours, you can churn out 50 books. But
Yeah.
you can't churn out 50 books that are at least 8 hours that are just you without never leaving your booth. You might as well just bring in your quilt and sit there. I mean, and that's not good for your health.
And you
So for
can't
me,
compare, can you? Because I mean, because my choice was the books. I gave up exercise. This is no life. I got sick
yeah,
because I chose the books and I couldn't understand. I felt like I think I've spent the last 3 years feeling, no matter how hard I worked, here's the part where I said, I'm not going to be authentic on this call because I'm sick of having to edit everything out. But I spent the last 3 years feeling like I was failing as a human being because no matter how hard I tried, all I could do was narrate because there was no time for anything else. And because the
yeah.
more you narrate without days off, the slower your kind of progress is because you don't have the downtime,
Well,
right?
I think what happened to me, I was always a gym brat because rather than go to a shrink, I rather work out and get those endorphins and I feel better. So whatever's bothering me, I work out. The harder I work, more is bothering me, the harder I work out. But
Gosh, I wish I was like that.
but I found when I was doing 24/7 work, especially this one specific year when I was doing so much work, that when I finally had 5 minutes to myself, I didn't feel like walking to the gym. All I
Yeah.
wanted to do was sit on the couch and turn on Netflix. I just wanted to be
Yep.
chill. I just wanted to chill. So yeah, I wasn't like I was so out of shape I couldn't do it, but I was not in the shape I was used to being in. And then I started getting down on myself. I'm thinking, you know, opening up jar and I'm going, why is this difficult? I used to be able to, pull
Right.
myself up into 50
Right.
chin-ups. What's going
Your average
on?
12-year-old does more than you do.
My cousin is 10. He can open this jar. What's wrong? So that's what I find. You start to drain of everything else. So
Yeah.
even when you have 5 minutes off, you just don't feel like doing anything. You don't feel like cooking, so you'll order in food, which is never good because it's never anything healthy. Or you watch TV. You don't do anything for yourself really because you're just too tired and you just want to sit and veg out. I just don't. I don't see. I wish someone would tell me. I would like to know how someone can make a 24/7 living only on audiobooks. And I mean a good living, not, oh, they're just making whatever, 30,000 a year. I mean a really good living just sitting from their booth because
Yeah.
I don't
Because
know how
I
to
can
do
say
that.
21 and 22, I had at the most 4 days off
Mhm.
in those 2 years. And I've got calendars with the sticky notes for every day I worked. And I was not making a good living. Right. So it's
No,
not
yeah.
completely just volume, because you have to be able to do enough. Yeah. I don't know what it is, but the harder I worked,
Well,
the less
because
I
the
got
thing
done.
is, we have SAG-AFTRA contracts, which are great, and there's a
Yeah.
minimum. Most publishers go with that minimum. So unless they really want you, you're, somebody famous, that's what you're going to get. So if you do the math, you can only do a certain amount of books. If you want to make, I don't, let's take a figure. You want to make $60,000 a year. Well, if most books are at least 8 hours, and if you're going to make X amount of money and that's what you're making, figure it out. How many hours of recording do you need to get that nut?
Yeah.
It's usually a lot. And so, for instance, the year I did the 25 books, I made good money, but I didn't make enough money to warrant that I gave up my life for a year. I
Yeah.
didn't. We were supposed to go to Europe. We canceled the trip. I was supposed to do something else. I canceled. Broadway show, gave my ticket to somebody else because I was in the booth 24/7. And those are
Yeah.
experiences I'm never going to get back.
Yeah.
So for me, if it's a problem, the problem is that I don't care about numbers. I don't want to be able to say, oh, now I have 500 books. Now I have 6,000 books. Who cares? I'd rather
Yeah, I
have
don't know how
100
many
books
I
I'm
have.
proud of than 6,000 books I churned out just because I had to make X amount of money. And so
Yeah.
I'm now looking for other things because I just know it's not me. I can no longer continue to do that. And I don't want to start turning down work from people. Um, so yeah, it's a conundrum. I'm kind of like, how do you make the quota? How do you make a certain nut without giving up your life? And I don't know if anybody really has the answer. I
Well,
know that, people always have
sorry.
workshops where they claim they're going to have someone who's going to tell you that. But
Yeah.
whenever I've heard someone tell me that, they really didn't tell me that. They're just kind of saying they make the time. Well, yeah, you made the time to have dinner with your family. Did that mean that you were in the booth till 3 o'clock in the morning? Because that's what I was doing. I had to have dinner with my husband. So I got out of the booth and went back in, and I was there till 2 o'clock in the morning. How was that
Yeah,
a
see,
life?
and that's the other thing. You're fitting it around other people's lives as well. And
Right.
even if your booth is soundproof, there's the day the helicopters are flying on top. I mean, but the thing about it is I lost my thought, but the thing about it is when you're going in and you're narrating, right? You because if you're spending all that, because what I did was I spent the money on online stuff that I didn't need. I spent,
Right.
but when I was in a corporate job, I spent more money than you should ever spend constantly on clothes
Right.
because I was unhappy. So I was having to feed that monster of like that hole in my heart from like doing something I hated. But I love narrating, but I got it's easy to lose touch with the joy because the
Well,
worries
yeah,
come in.
I think that's probably why you obviously, yeah, that's why you bought, that's where you buy, or,
Yeah.
somebody, there's another narrator, I'm not going to say who it is, but she's always saying, do I spend too much money? Because she's always buying the new thing, the booth, the new equipment, the new this, just because
The faux
she's
fur,
always,
the
yeah, she's
rhinestones, the
on,
pink
she,
lipstick.
she's, she's always narrating. So her only outlet to joy is to go online and
Yeah.
shop. Um, Mine was to veg out. I was so exhausted that I was like, and I'm really a horrible sleeper. So my thing was put on a headset and the TV and watch a movie or something,
Oh,
until
I
you get the
canceled
hours in the morning.
Netflix and Disney because of the strike, because like,
Oh,
woo.
yeah.
So I canceled Netflix and Disney 3 days in a row. I've gone to bed by midnight, like a
Oh,
normal
well, see,
person.
there you go. You'll notice if you don't hang out on social media, you'll go to bed earlier too. Because I noticed that immediately. I was like, if I don't look at social media after 11 or 12, then I won't be here at 3 o'clock in the morning looking at social media,
Well,
reading
social
posts.
media, and there's another thing. There is like a dead energy to it because basically I had one day I was telling everyone I dealt with finance stuff, like, grown up stuff like wills and things like that. All the stuff that like I was afraid to look at. And I think it was like 4 o'clock. I thought, wow, I'm kind of hot stuff. Look at what I've done. And so to celebrate, I went on Facebook to veg out. I hadn't been on it all day. Within
Right.
2 minutes, the first thing I saw everyone's posts, oh my God, I'm wonderful. I'm on, which you have to do, which is marketing, which, I've
Right.
got this
Right.
book, I've got that book, and they're all people I love. They're my friends. I'm happy for them. And then I happened to go on one of the groups. And the first thing was AI is coming to kill us and we're all going to lose our job. Oh, it was right when the strike. Now all those actors are going to come and take our jobs. That was kind of what it was.
Oh yeah, that the big actors were going to come and do audiobooks.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
and
all the comments were like
once they
doom and
do one
gloom.
audiobook, they'll never do another audiobook
Right.
because
It's if
let
they
me
love
tell you,
audiobooks, they love them.
any
Fine. They're a
any
narrator. I love you.
anything is easier. Anything in this business is easier than audiobooks. Anything.
Yeah.
Being on stage, you have to memorize. Fine. Okay. Film, they do the same shot 20 times. Okay, great. I mean, if you do musicals, like, some people, that's a lot of work. I never did musicals because I can barely carry a tune.
I
So,
know me too. I wish I
I
could.
don't think anybody would hire me.
Will you let
But,
me lip
but,
sync?
but the hardest work I've ever done is audiobooks.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just hard work and it pays the least. There's no residuals. So it's hard work. It's just
Yeah.
very hard work.
And who
There are
among
so
us
many
aren't
other ways.
actors and don't have friends that are
That's what I'm saying.
actors?
If you're a Tom Hanks, you may do one book because you feel like it's fun. You may even do another book because he
Yeah.
writes now. I think he's doing his own books. Yeah, it's good publicity and he'll sell more books. That's why he's doing his own books. But a lot of these famous actors do one book and you don't see them doing another book.
Yeah.
They don't come back.
And if
Because
they
it's
do
not,
come back, then they're one of us. You know.
but they don't. That's just it. So I remember seeing that post that they said
Yeah.
they're going to take our jobs. I'm thinking they may come back for one book, but they're certainly not going to take everybody's jobs.
But it wasn't even
So
that.
they were
It was
gonna,
like a collection of everyone's fear.
Yeah.
Everyone's fear was,
Here's the thing. Facebook has its place and it's fun when you let it be fun.
yeah.
But there's a lot of diverse opinions and everybody's angry.
Yeah.
You know, at some point or other, you come onto some place where somebody's angry. And then other people are angry, join in, and it just becomes a hate fest. And so you leave and you go to another group. And then maybe there everybody's happy because somebody just got a great review. So
Yeah.
you have to pick and choose what you listen to. I don't have a problem with Facebook. I don't have a problem with TikTok.
I do love Facebook.
TikTok, sorry. TikToks are really delicious. I don't have a problem with TikTok. But I do have a problem with living on social media because
Yeah.
I just don't think it's very healthy.
You're trying
for
to
people
fill that
anymore.
hole.
Yeah,
The
I think,
hole that you fill with rhinestones and faux fur and pink lipstick.
yeah, even the few years I've been, I don't know how long I've been on Facebook, 10 years maybe. I've seen what it was and where it's gotten to now. And there's just too much anger, whether it's political anger or AI anger or some other thing, you know, anger at women, anger at men, anger at this, anger at that. There's so much anger that comes out that I
I
don't
know there's a
see.
whole Barbie thing, and like everyone in the world is freaking out. Like it's like
I
upside
thought
down
everybody loved,
universe.
I thought everybody loved Barbie right now.
Oh no, there's evidently a whole segment of the population, the ones that
Doesn't like it.
would not like, that would prefer women didn't speak. They're they're not happy with it.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, no,
I
there's a
haven't seen
whole
it. I don't know.
segment. There's a big fight going on, evidently. I missed
No,
it,
I didn't know
but
that.
evidently
I
the
just heard it
cool
was a
kids are
funny
all
movie.
fighting.
So,
Uh,
all right.
I have a very important, quirky question for you from
Okay.
Kim. Who was
Okie
your
dokie.
first crush?
Oh dear God. So many. I have to hold it
So many.
down. Oh, well, some of them are people that are going to sound ridiculous because they were born and dead before I was. But I always had a crush on what's his face, Kelly, that from Singing in the Rain.
Gene Kelly.
Gene Kelly. Because when I was a kid, I saw Singing in the Rain on television, and I thought he was a cat's meow. And I don't even know if he was. I guess he was still alive, but he was pretty old at that point. And that was a crush. God, I saw some early pictures with Robert Redford, and I fell in love with Robert Redford.
Oh, well, everyone
And
loves Robert Redford.
I never liked Brad Pitt, which everybody was in love with, until I saw a movie he had done where he was just so winning that I thought, okay, he could be on my list. Like Brad
Yeah,
Pitt.
I still
But
don't.
I don't really remember my first, because when I was a kid, you know, at 4 or 5 o'clock, they always had movies on television. They were always these movies from the 40s, the 50s, the 60s. And so I would see these people who I didn't know they were now, you know, 70, because
Yeah.
they're 20 in these movies. And I would get crushes on people who were old enough, my grandfather. So I probably had many crushes. I can't remember somebody was my first crush who was famous. I remember crushes who were real people who lived in my town,
Yeah.
maybe. Not, you know, people I didn't have a chance in hell of meeting.
But the line between TV, because I remember my babysitter's husband looked like Andy Griffith, and I thought that he was. I got confused. So, like, I thought I knew him personally, you know what I mean? And then don't even get me started on James Garner. I mean, you get confused. I thought Lucy was my aunt.
Everybody loved James Garner. It would be un-American not to have loved James
You
Garner.
have to love
In
James
some
Garner.
incarnation of his many forms. Yeah.
I might need to rewatch all the Rockford Files.
But I'm also gonna step back, because you never know. It is not easy to be on stage. So anyone who's been on stage, I'm not saying that's easy work. It's hard work, but it's a different work, and it's rewarding, and it's a different way than audiobooks are. Audiobooks are so insular. I mean, it's just you and your booth and your mic, and
yeah.
and there's no feedback. At least if you're on stage, people will laugh applaud or boo, whatever. But there's life, you know, you don't get any reaction in your booth. So just in case people out there going, I've done theater, it's tough.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I see.
Yes, I have too. It's tough. It is tough. I don't
You,
want anybody to be insulted.
but the thing is, it's a different kind of hard. And I'll tell you what, I used to do voiceover before I started audiobooks, and I would go on the occasional job back to London and everything before I started using COVID as my excuse not to have to do anymore.
Not to leave anywhere.
Yeah. But I went to my first one after having narrated for like 2 or 3 years. And I go to this voiceover job, and it was like, I'm not putting voiceovers down because it's a different kind. You've got a lot of client facing, you've got a lot of business reach out. I mean, that it's not easy. You know, I'd be making a fortune if I could, but I was like, compared to audiobook narration, are you kidding me?
Well, you know, the thing though is because of COVID, and it's one of the things that's in the, you know, they're striking about is everybody's doing home auditions still, which saves the studios megabucks. Saves the casting people a lot of money, but not you, because you need the light and the mic, and sometimes people hire people to tape them and everything else. Commercial work is voiceover has gone that way too. It's you don't see anybody anymore. Years ago, you'd walk into a studio, you'd see a bunch of actors, you'd see the same actors, you became friends, and you'd go in and do your bit, and you left. You got to talk to a casting person, and if they liked you, they called you back. Now they I don't know how many people they probably send the audition out. Even your own agent probably sends it to 20 of their clients, and then they filter through and go, okay, I'll send these 5, and then every other agent's doing the same thing. So the casting person who's ultimately responsible doesn't know you from a hole in the wall. And frankly, I used to do audio casting years ago for documentaries and for industrials, and I can tell you that by the 10th or 12th tape, because they were still doing tapes, someone would send in, because I didn't have an office. So they were doing tapes for me back then. After a while, you kind of go, okay, this isn't great, but it's good enough. And you put it to the side. And so eventually you'd have a pile of great, not good, but not great, but good enough. And then eventually you'd hone that down and hone that down. And I'm talking about maybe 40 people would send me an audition. These casting people must listen to thousands of, how many are they going to listen to? They may never get to your tape. You can be wonderful.
And there was something yesterday that this woman was like, I'm sick of getting the feedback. Oh, you were the best in the room. You were amazing. They decided to go a different way. And she's like, how can they go in a different direction if I was the best one in the room? And she was like, it took me a while to figure out it's not a meritocracy. You could be the best audition out there, but you weren't the voice for the job.
No.
So,
or it depends who's picking the voice. If you know, excuse me, the casting people may go, oh, this person's perfect, and they send it, even for audiobooks, and they send it to powers that be, the author or the publisher, and the author or publisher goes, I don't like this. I don't know why I like it. I don't like this person. And they don't like you because maybe you sound like their ex-husband. Maybe you sound like their mother-in-law. Maybe you sound like a girlfriend they didn't like. Maybe you sound like a boyfriend they didn't like.
Or maybe they like that vocal fry thing.
Yes. Or maybe they like vocal fry. Or maybe they like a really YA voice. Like I'm an alto. Maybe they like someone who sounds constantly like they're still 17. So you don't know what they're judging it on. So that's why you may have done the best job, but you may not be who the powers that be ultimately take, because it's not the sound they have in their head. They have a different sound.
I have to say, one of the things I'm proudest of in my life is 2 incidents. One, I was on a bus, and one, I was standing outside a bar with friends where I had random men. One came up on the bus, came running to the back of the bus and screamed at the top of his lungs. I was talking to my friend who took the bus every day. Shut up! Shut up! And then another guy walked up to me. I was standing in line with a friend waiting for a bar, like 4 years later, saying, you've got the worst voice I've ever heard.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah, I have random people can't stand me because of my voice.
Did you tell them to do something obscene to themselves?
I don't even remember. I mean, at the bar, I had lots of big fellas that like kind of came rushing over. I used to make friends with the bouncers, so that was fine. On the bus, I just stood there.
I think my New York would have come out and said, "Oh, really?"
I didn't, my friend, I remember my friend was laughing so hard, she was crying. There were just tears and he kept screaming and everyone on the
Yeah.
bus.
And going back to what I said about women's voices, do you think he'd walk up to a man and say that?
Oh, never, never. I mean, he was unstable. I think these days it would have been a much more dangerous situation. He was unstable, but but still, the fact
That's
that our voices can trigger something, you never
Oh yeah.
know. And we're putting it
Oh,
out there for approval every day.
every day. I did a book with Johnny. It's really Johnny's book, but I think it was from Macmillan, and it's been out there at least 10 years, but it still has high marks and still sells. And it was about a soldier, and I just played his wife. And his wife was, sorry, lady, she was kind of a whiny Southern belle who men would drool over. And so she got whatever she wanted. And then she falls in love with this really basic soldier guy who just basically sweeps her off her feet, but he's not the guy she would normally go for. So over the course of time, well, he loses limbs in the war and all this stuff. She said things that normally she would have walked away because she was so superficial, no longer was superficial because she loved someone, and she loved someone other than
I
herself.
want to listen to this
This,
Johnny and Joanna book.
this is the book. So all the reviews are always fine, and I never look at reviews, but for some reason I saw the book. I thought, oh my God, that book's still out. And there was a review from I think it was a guy who said, I couldn't listen to that whiny Southern belle one more minute. And I went, job done. I was a whiny Southern belle. That's exactly who I was. And I'm not Southern. And so I thought, well, I guess did a job. But it was just because he could say, I hate the sound of those Southern bells. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, well, maybe Southern belles hate the sound of wherever you're from.
I quit
You
theater for
can't say
5 years because a big critic panned. It was a three-part Madame Melville, and I
that.
played Ruth, the obnoxious American neighbor. He said that it
And you
was the
sound like
most,
an obnoxious American
he
neighbor
said it
and it
was the
bothered.
fakest American accent he'd ever heard in his life, that I was so obnoxious. And I quit. I just quit acting for 5 years.
Oh, so you let these,
Yeah.
you can't be, if you're going to be in acting in any version of it, you just can't be thin skinned, because
Yeah.
you're everything's subjective, and you're going to have a lot of idiots out there who are telling you things
Yeah.
because it's their opinion. Who cares what their opinion is?
I wouldn't
Your
do it in
opinion's
audiobooks,
much
but I
more
think I
important than
felt
their opinion.
vulnerable in theater because I had body image. I was always felt that I was on the back foot because what people said to me, fair enough. I always felt in person, because I struggled with my weight, too high, too low my whole life. I always felt that what people said to me was true, that they had a
Oh
right
no.
because there was something wrong with me. But now in audiobooks, you can say what you want about my body, but you try to say something about my voice, honey, I got you.
Back in the day when Gina Davis was really popular, I remember reading an interview, and she said when she first hit, and she's stunning, she's like 6'1".
Yeah.
She said she was told she's way too tall. She's never going to work because she towered over all the male stars. Like Tom Cruise is probably 5'8". And then she was told she didn't pretty enough. She didn't have a good profile.
She's
She should
beautiful.
she should change her eye color. She should change her hair color. Then she broke out on film, and of course she was the most gorgeous creature according to publicity that you'd ever seen. So
Mhm.
you can't listen to anybody. Everybody
Yeah.
has an opinion. Everybody has an opinion. The first agent I had in LA told me I should get blue contact lenses, and I should dye my hair either blonde or red because I was too exotic. And I was like, if I have to go
Yeah.
to that much
Quote
trouble,
unquote ethnic, because that's what they're
I said,
saying.
that much trouble, maybe you're not the agent for me. If you don't know how
Yeah.
to package me, that's your problem. And if the only way to package me is to turn me into another version of Barbie, then you're not for me and I'm not for you.
But
I
that
think
was
you
the
have to learn to
40-year-old
take.
conversation. That's how I felt when I felt sorry. I was like, I wish I could save you this like 3, 4 years of angst while you're still trying to shed the need to worry about that stuff. Because it made me realize where I am now, that like my biggest thing is I want to do something amazing and see how far I can go.
Right.
That's it. All
Well,
that, are they going to
that's what
like
you
me because of my weight, is gone.
yeah. I think the problem is if you go into the booth, that's why I was talking earlier. I said that everybody has, this imposter syndrome. Everybody's always had imposter syndrome to some level.
Yeah.
No, but there's very few people. They may tell you they think they're wonderful. They are not. Everybody gets hung up. But you've got to just have faith in yourself and go with
Yeah.
yourself. And for instance, in audiobooks, are you getting hired? Are you getting offered books? Well, then I think you're fine. Then somebody out
Yeah.
there appreciates what you do. So if I appreciate this person and that person doesn't, well, the heck with that person. Get more people like this.
Yeah. If you've
It's
done
just
5 books, 6 books, that's what PJ said that. Remember that time I might have been freaking out a tiny bit and you and Johnny had to talk me down on Messenger till 4 a.m. PJ said, he said, you've done 200 plus audiobooks. He said that's 200 plus people that had other choices that chose you.
right. That shows you exactly.
Simple.
And that's why I'm also saying you can't go by the numbers because I've I've done a lot of work that I'm not even credited for that's out in universities.
Exactly.
I don't even know how many books
And they
I've
start
done.
taking them down after 6 years. So the
Yeah,
number
yeah. And
changes. I have no
on
clue how much I really have.
Audible alone, I've lost because I've been doing it so long, at least 20 books in the last 2 years have disappeared. Because they were old or they were Audible books or they were, when Audible was doing everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so they used to have everybody do everything. And there were books that probably weren't selling or were outdated or advice books that the advice was no longer cogent or whatever. So, you can't focus on how many books do I have and all the other crapola. You just have to do your job and know that you're good at it because people are hiring you.
Yeah. Because
And
that
if
number
nobody's
really
hiring
does
you,
change
and if
after
nobody's
six
hiring
years.
you, examine that. If nobody's
Yeah.
hiring you, talk to a coach you can trust and say, what am I doing wrong? And let them listen to maybe your auditions and they can tell you what you're doing wrong is this, that, or the other thing. Or
Yeah.
maybe you're not doing anything wrong, but it's, again, subjective. You don't know who's doing the final hiring. So the casting director may love you, and they generally send in 3 or 6 people they like. And I'm told that they say, number 1 is the person I think is perfect. 2 and 3 are equally good. These 3 are my dark horses. They may work for you. And I've been told by them that a lot of times they go, no, I don't like any of them. And they have to send 3 more or 6 more. They don't, because it's so subjective. It's no, years ago, people would, for instance, how many books do you actually get handed as opposed to how many do you have to audition for?
Yeah.
I used to get handed books left and right. I didn't have to audition for anything. And then occasionally it was an audition and I was happy because I like auditioning. Now I would say every 10 books that I've worked on, 9 are by audition. One, somebody just said, oh, I got a book, you can have it, because
And
those
the
days are
audition is the job. So it's and the focusing on jumping in. Just that's what I'm going to focus on from now on. Just all that other stuff has to go. I feel I don't want to do it. I just don't want to do it anymore. All the mind chatter.
you can't because it just undermines everything you want to do. You'll spend your time worrying. That's why I
Yeah.
don't even bother. I don't bother with Audible. There are people who hate me on Audible. Fine, hate me. There's one book I did early on that was directed, and it's just awful. The book's great. I mean, I was awful. The book was fine, and I've gotten slammed left and right for 15 years or something on this book, and I keep looking. Take it out, please get rid of it. Now everybody's going to go look to see what book it is. It's just get rid of this book. It never goes because it sells. It literally sells. I don't know why it sells. I am clueless because everybody who makes it hates me, but the book sells, so it's still there. That's a book I would pay the author to sell me the rights and have somebody else
Wow.
do it. But I can't get rid of it. So the thing is, you can't go, and if I listened to this was one of the first books I did. And if I'd listened to it, and it was done on a really weird system, so it's very stop and go to begin with. I would never have, if I believed it, I would have gone, oh, they hate me. I can't do this anymore. But I went, okay, well, now I know. I won't do that again. I won't do
I
that
am
twice.
quite good. I don't look back. I mean, I've learned whatever lessons I need from my accountability partner if they read reviews and there's like a theme. But I'm listening to I won't say who, I would never say who, a big book, my favorite kind of book.
Mhm.
Top writer. I'm a bit annoyed because I thought it was a new one by this writer, but it was one that like they've redone from years ago.
Oh,
So
they
I feel
re-released,
kind of
yeah.
like I already had this one a long time ago. But not only that, I'm not a fan of the narration. I'm not.
Mhm.
Um, that's fine. but the pickups are a completely different voice. And they keep bringing me out of the narration. And this is like a major book.
Is it the same
Major.
narrator who did the pickups?
Yeah. But they're like
Maybe I will
done
say that,
differently. They're so obviously pickups.
yeah. The thing is, the reason I hate pickups is because I'm really finicky about them, and I listen to the voice match, and I will do them 2 and 3 times till I get the voice
I
match.
will
And
too, because
if I'm not sure, I'll say, forgive me, there's 3 of them here, and I'll do the same one 3 times, see which one fits. I do know a lot of narrators don't even listen to the voice tape, especially with nonfiction. They go, oh, I know what
this
he's talking about.
this
So they
had to
just
have been
do
done
the,
in a studio though. This was like a major book.
oh, so maybe it was the wrong, maybe they did one in the home studio and the pickups in a studio, or vice versa, to change the sound. You know
Yeah.
what I
Well, I'm
mean?
not
Because
listening to
otherwise,
it
I don't know why it
anymore.
would be so off.
I'm so like, I care about those things.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
those things are so much more important to care about than how much weight I am.
Right in the booth. What they used to, what's the old thing? Got a perfect face for radio. Um, nobody sees you. You're in the booth. Who cares? But I do think there's just too much of, um, God, of people judging themselves by what other people are telling them, or
Yeah.
what they see other people say on social media. And again, I'm not against people going to. I'm not against social media. I think it's a wonderful thing. I stay in touch with my family in Italy. It's great. It's wonderful. But I do think people focus too much on other people's opinions, and so everybody tries to go along with whatever the politically correct, if that's still used, opinion is at that moment, even if they don't believe it. And the problem is that a lot of the social media is, and I don't think people realize it, is narrow-minded. Nobody's open-minded. It's like, it's my way or the highway. Oh, you don't like that? Either you like that or you're not one of my people. Oh, you don't like this? Well, then you're not one of
Yeah.
my
The whole
people.
my people thing freaks me
Yeah,
out.
it's an exclusion thing. The hive mind, the village. Everybody's an individual. Let's honor that. And
In
everybody has opinions.
corporations, that's where they used acronyms. But that's what, they shortened everything in
Yeah.
corporations. And it was only later that I realized they're doing that so they can leave other people out. That's
Yeah,
a
well,
way of
yeah.
saying we know the secret language.
But see, I don't think people realize that on social media there are people who are being left out because they get
Yeah.
turned off by social media. I know that there's, I'm not going to say who they are, but there's at least 3 big female narrators that I followed who left in the last 2 years, and now they're on Instagram, but they're no longer on Facebook. And these are award-winning women who work a lot. And I said to one, when did you leave Facebook? She said, oh, I just couldn't take the black and white anymore, and I left. And I just didn't feel like arguing over stuff that I didn't feel like arguing over. And she said she felt like whenever she announced something that had to do with work, nobody really paid attention to it. But if she posted something like political, say, everybody jumped on. And so she kind of thought, well, I'm better off than going to Instagram, because Instagram still seems more focused on what people are, I have a book out, or I got a nice review, or stuff like that. So she switched. So, there are people who are jumping ship and going to different medias, which they think are more welcoming. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So I don't have anything against it. I just think everybody dwells too much on it. And I think it breeds a lot of discontent among people. Oh, they're working all the time. I'm not working all the time.
Yeah, see, that's the only bit my feed is fine because I just snooze things I don't like and then you never see it again. It's like, I wish the real world was like that.
Yeah,
And Messenger's fine because that's my friends touching base.
yeah. I
It's
do snooze a
popping
lot,
into
but
groups that is my Achilles heel because I soak up other people's moods and you got to
yeah.
be
Well,
careful.
that you do. You find yourself getting, incensed. They're incensed, and they make a good argument. And all of a sudden, you're
Yeah,
going, "Well, I'm incensed.
yeah.
Why am I incensed? I don't know, but they were incensed, and now I'm incensed. I
Why am
don't know
I
why.
so angry?
Why am I angry? So that's my problem with it. I don't like to. If it really would depend on, if it comes to a point where I can only get work by doing social media, I don't know, I might give up the work, because I just don't have the constitution to do that much work on social media. I like it as a medium to say hi to people, or happy birthday, or I'm sorry something happened, but I don't like it as a sense to sell myself. I mean, I published a review about a month ago that was positive, and Johnny had to talk me into it. I'm like, I don't really want to. It's Facebook.
Yeah.
I maybe Instagram. I don't have Facebook, but I did, and it was nice. And yeah, you get nice feedback because your friends like you, and they're not going to say, "Well, you suck." You
I,
feel great.
I
So
know
you
that's
feel
what I
good.
hate.
You
But
feel
yeah, I'll
good for
put
an
a
hour.
profile picture up from like 5 years ago because I want to like I'm having a bad night. I want to be pretty, so I'll put a and then all of a sudden people pop up and go, "Oh, you're gorgeous, you're beautiful," and you don't want to say,
Our
5 years
10 years
ago.
old. I don't know. I just think we have to start. I think we all take ourselves too seriously. I
Yeah.
think everything's too important. And I go to the famous thing when I was a waiter for many years, and people would say something, a customer would do something that made you want to just spit blood, and you just want to take something and pour it over their head. Somebody would put their hand on your shoulder and go, in 50 years, no one will care. In fact, you'll probably be dead. Nobody will care. This won't even be a distant memory. And I think that's how you look at some of this stuff. If everything's important, then nothing's important.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Jo Anna
I think
Perrin,
everything's perspective.
I cannot believe we've run out of time. Like, what have you done to me? I haven't even asked any of the questions I'd planned on asking. Um, so
You want to do 10 minutes of questions so you can then edit it out and put it in?
I don't know where the time went. So if you're going to leave the listeners, I'm going to get you on this one. Final words of wisdom, famous last words. What would you want them to take away from this call, if nothing else?
I think what we've been nattering on about. I think that, yeah, I think it would be just don't take yourself so seriously. Nothing to do with audiobooks is as important as your health, as important as your family life, your social life. We need those things, and we were deprived of it through COVID. So, that's what I would say. Don't take yourself too seriously. Everybody has self-doubt, but don't let yourself be ruled by self-doubt. I guess that's it. Live your life, and if you're lucky enough to do audiobooks, do them. But if they make you unhappy, then find something else. Because it's not worth a whole bunch of sacrifices if you don't get some enjoyment out of it, frankly. Those are my words of wisdom.
I think that's everything. I say this all the time, but I sincerely mean it. This was the call we needed today. Thank you so much, Joanna.
Oh, thanks for having me.
I've
been here like a dozen times. People are sick of me.
I know. And you do know that I just want to chase you guys again and again. Johnny and Joanna. I would call it the Johnny and Joanna show if I could get away with it. But I don't want to impose on your generosity because I know you're both very busy. But thank you so much. This is just wonderful.
Thank you.
So we shall go forth and be fabulous.
Yes, go forth and be fabulous. Exactly.
Thanks. Bye, everyone. Thank you. Bye.